there yet, right? Or
Okay.
Yeah. So I know we do need to discuss that one. I was going down the
Okay.
priorities. Do we keep the
No
priorities
problem.
the same? And then we go to the next section.
Mhm. Any thoughts from the Go team on the school priorities? And
I believe the priorities should stay the same. I think that we've done a good job of moving things in and out of strategies to meet those priorities.
Okay.
One thought. I know I'm talking a lot today, but what about potential regression? Have you all seen any this year, or are you still pretty much on pace, or do we think that the current strategies will also answer potential regression that's happened as a result of the last year or so?
Now, we definitely have seen regression with student learning, because even when we look at our students who are, we look at the students who are participating on a regular basis, I always say about 75% of our kids are here each and every day. And so at some point, those kids, when we go back in face-to-face, those kids that have not participated will be in the building. And then we have also, and I think that's going back to what Mr. Cortez said about we've infused some strategies to try to address that. I also know that the district is working on a district strategy to help with regression, because we know that kids, because of we have summer loss and then we have COVID loss. So there will have to be some acceleration done with students. And so that will come under one of our strategies. Does that make sense, Mr. Thomas?
It does. It does. I just wanted to make sure we, at least we just had some conversation on it.
Okay. And so that would be something we would add under our strategies.
I had a question, Paul. And it's sort of is similar to Vince's question around some regression. You know, one of the amazing things about King is the sense of community that exists there. You know, it's a really great place to be, as all of y'all know. And looking forward to next year being back physically together again. And do you think that some of the regression has been like with sixth graders not necessarily being there physically? And could a school priority around be relevant to creating a stronger sense of community, knowing that y'all have been detached for going on a year?
I think that that's a great question. And I think under where we, I think what we could do is look at some under priority number 5, develop a positive and collaborative environment for students and staff. Under the strategies, we could put specifically working with, add some different strategies that we need to approach, because I do know that one of my biggest concern is that our sixth graders have never been in the building. And so half of their year is over. And if, you know, right now we have some students that are returning in February, but it's not all of our sixth graders. And so there will have to be some supports to get our kids familiar with middle school. There are going to have to be some supports and strategies in place to get our kids who are 7th and 8th graders who have been in school since March. There's going to be some adjustment there. And it may be through, we looked at adding another advisory, which would be a strategy during the middle of the day to address that. And we also looked at, there's some personnel things that we looked at too to support that as well. But I agree. So I think that we could specifically say this in strategy, Dr. Hackett. Down here, we can spell it out exactly what you're saying. So if you would keep that note and we can put it in that area.
so, Mr. Brown, it sounds like there's agreement from the group on the particular priorities. It sounds like we're anxious to get into the strategies, is what it feels like to me.
Okay.
So I'm not clear. I think we should probably vote wholesale on the strategic plan, maybe not in sections, but could you lead us into talking about the strategies?
Yes, ma'am. So I know that And I think some of the strategies we need to, I think if we vote on the strategies may be updated, because I do want to get teacher input based on strategies they implement, because there may be some things that we're missing that they're doing, that we're doing. And just because, I know we have some teachers here, but making sure we have those in there as well. So even today, we may not come out with a final strategic plans, but we will start that process of updating it. And then our next meeting, we could possibly vote on the full strategic plan along with looking at our budget allotment. Does that make sense? I'm just looking at the group. Okay. Okay. So currently, we have under our school priority under academics, we have 7 basic strategies, and that's to integrate the district-wide instructional practice in all contents. And we have, and actually today we actually did that, and that is making sure teachers use the instructional framework to provide instruction for students, also following the district scope and sequence. So focus on daily lessons. And so those are all the strategies to meet that need for students. There are some additional things that we can add to it. And I guess I'm the only person who can write on this. If I can write on it. Like one of the things that we implemented this year, and teachers had a professional development on it today to better use, and that was using iExcel as a strategy to support students. And iExcel is another resource that we use. So I know that we need to update. Mr. Mulholland, can you jot down like the things we need to add to the strategic plan?
Yes, Mr. Brown. But can we update it on this document?
I'm trying. I don't know how to do it.
No, I can do that. I have a copy that I can update it on.
Oh, great. Okay. Okay. So I think down here where we have like consumable math books, all that need to come out.
Mr. Brown, should we be using the strategic plan that you're looking at versus what we had put forth in February of 2020 and kind of compare those strategies? Because obviously we created strategies.
I thought I must have pulled the wrong one up. I'm sorry.
Well, it made sense to me though, because we kind of had created strategies for an in-person school. And obviously now we kind of were using the previous one, which also made sense because we didn't have all the data to go with the last strategic plan. So I was just kind of looking at both of them thinking, are we kind of working both of them to see which make the most sense to be back in person?
Okay. Mr. Carter, can you email me that one? Or if you don't have, I can pull it.
I'm actually looking at the hard copy. I just have it in a folder.
Okay, because I went back to the Go Team. I pulled the last one from the Go Team site.
Which one do you need, Mr. Brown? I may have it.
The one from February 2020.
February 2020.
So I'm gonna stop sharing this one. So what I can do, let me go to my stuff. Let's see. Um, 2000. Let me try this one. I think this is the one. Mr. Cortez, do you see this one?
I do see it.
Is this is the one, right? No, it's the same one.
I do not think so. It's easy for me to notice because that's why I, in my head, jumped to that key performance measures ahead of time. I apologize for that. It's because you were speaking to the addition
Because it
of the
went for
Black
3
subgroup,
years. It had 3 years on
and
it.
we had added that to the February 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. I found one. I sent one over. It is in Word.
Okay.
I just emailed it to you.
This is the same one. Okay. So I think what we can do is, let me do this. Because I don't want to keep us, and I know what we can. So I'm sharing this one. So I know that this is, can y'all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I know that one of the things that will change will be our key measure. Like this part from the school strategies, I do need to meet with teachers to get this cleaned up. But then if we go to Mr. Cortez's concern, and I want to hear your concern first, Mr. Cortez, because I think we can do both of them with this document if our priorities are the same. Tell me your concern.
No, I was just, what I was doing, what I was looking kind of at that 2021 as well as the one that you had pulled up, because I could see how some of the strategies would have changed for virtual versus in person. So for me, it made sense to look at both of them. But
Okay.
when we were speaking to creating one for next year, being back in person, is why I was then focusing back on the 2021.
Okay, but I think that we need to also keep some of the strategies for virtual, because it may be now virtual is going to be a part of, I really think in the long run, snow days are going to go away because we're going to move to virtual. So I think we can keep some of those same strategies in place because they will support. And then one of the things that we found that we did this year, we tested out for the month of December. We did a virtual tutorial for those kids that, and we targeted students with disability, and we target students that were struggling in class through a virtual setting, and we put them in a small setting, and it actually, those kids improved over a month. So we saw those kids, by them meeting with a teacher that was one-on-one, it did help. So we could keep some of those virtual strategies, even if we go back to a face-to-face, because we had more students attending that tutorial than when we were in a face-to-face setting. Does that make sense? Like, I'm just looking at the strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So when I think about like our key performance measure, all this data would be, next year would be our benchmark data. And so one of the things, I jotted down some notes for myself, and I'm just going to read them out. I was like, if we're going to look at our performance measures for next year, we could, because we don't know what the state is going to roll out or how they're going to adjust because of COVID, we could say maintain or increase our CCRPI scores in those areas. And so I was looking at language like that. I did look at like increase our scale score on STAR reading and math from 2021 to 2022. So from the fall to the spring, because the STAR assessment is something we have access to from the district. I also looked at a measure of to tie in with IB, implementing a minimum of 3 interdisciplinary units per grade level, so that it show that we're still connecting with IB. And these are my notes, you don't see these. And then I also put under culture, increasing our school partnerships, whether they are with colleges or with businesses or whatever, but increasing our school partnership. So those are some general things that I thought of that we could add in our strategic plan that will still be performance measures, because we don't know where the state is going. I can show you my little scratch notes, but it's this, I just wrote it in a little email to me. Y'all want to see those? Because I know I talked about it, but it may be easier to see. Let me find my notes.
I think we were able to see it just now, Mr. Brown.
You see mine?
Yeah, this in your email, yeah, that you jotted down.
Oh. I was sharing y'all my email. Okay.
Only that one though.
Only that
one.
It's all right. It's my little notes to myself. So I was looking at these types of, since we don't have any direct, like, we don't know where the state is going to go with the assessment. We don't know, but we do know that we need, that there more than likely will be an assessment for next school year. And we also know that we need to measure our students' growth, academic growth, or our students' loss, so we can put in place. So this statement is kind of like, hey, maintain or increase our CCRPI score when valid in all those areas for those subgroups. The other part would be increase student scale score on reading and math and on STAR assessment. That's something we can measure this school year, because students did take it in the fall and they will take it in the spring. And that is a norm reference test outside of the school. So that's an assessment we could use. Implementing a minimum of 3 interdisciplinary units, and I didn't put a date, by the end of the school year or by 2022. That will be something we can measure. And then I put down increased school partnerships. So those are some of the key measurements I was thinking of when I looked at the strategic plan. So I'll take suggestions from you all, teachers, parents, Dr. Hackett, anybody. I mean, those are some things I thought that we could put under key performance measures.
Yeah, I was wondering, you know, IB is a really complicated, complex, you know, meta framework for instruction. And I wonder, I like this idea of 3 interdisciplinary units. Is there another way of capturing, you know, the aspirations of IB that maybe just simply having 3 interdisciplinary units doesn't necessarily, it could speak to, you know, those IB goals, but is there another way maybe that you could think of, or anyone where, and the answer doesn't have to be right now, could that be something that we think about as a strategic measure to support IB goals? Because I know that that's something that
we could look at possibly, we could look at, because you made me think about that. We could look at possibly, I know last year we did the IB report card where we only did it for the learner profiles. So that could be a measure of looking like rolling out the IB report card, at least for 1 or 2 contents, ELA and math, or something like that. We could, or science and social studies, since we weigh so much heavily on, we can look at it like that. That's one way of measuring. We could look at,
like, I just
the implementation of ATL skills, which we've started this year in our connection courses. So our teachers are actually implementing a major part of IB, which is our ATL skills. So that could be something as well. I'm just throwing out those things. I know those are major parts of the implementation of IB in the framework?
Yeah, and I wonder if it could be even localized to the content areas. So I know that I know Ms. Jones does amazing work with the social studies fair and things like that. And, her students are active in that. So I wonder if it could be specific to content areas too, to demonstrate just how they're achieving a lot of these really important goals. I don't know, just throwing it
Okay.
out.
So you want to add, you're suggesting we add like a goal for social studies fair, science fair,
Or if it's
project-based learning?
yeah, like it could be localized or specific to whatever the content wants to come up with, or the departments. I don't know if yeah, I'm just throwing it out there as some brainstorming.
Teachers?
Excuse me, I like the idea of project-based learning because I can see how we can incorporate those approaches to learning skills, the researching, communicating, self-management, and other skills that the students would actually exhibit by participating in the project-based concept, as well as it'll kind of get them introduced in a sense to the service aspect, the service project aspect, which they will encounter, later on. But however, that could actually be a good starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because it's a complicated measure, but it speaks to that research, that participation, that deep engagement, right?
Mm-hmm. Critical thinking.
Critical inquiry, exactly.
Okay. So maybe we could go from this standpoint as from the Go team. Maybe we can look at here are our priorities and like the backwards design model. Here are here are the outcomes we would like to see. And then what I can do is meet with the teacher groups to clean up the strategies and all of that to have that in place. And so when we come back to our next Go team meeting, we can actually vote on the strategic plan, and I can meet with our leadership team to iron out the instructional strategy, so we'll have those in place. And I know we have Ms. Jacoby on, and I'm hoping that would be something we could do.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. So that is something that you can do. Just one thing to remember is that strategies fall into that management bucket. And while they're good to have in your strategic plan, before you get to the budget, you can still vote on those priorities today.
Okay.
So if that makes sense to everybody, because like you said, Principal Brown, you have to take it to your leadership team to talk about those strategies for that detail for the whole strategic plan. But those priorities and that accountability measure should be something that you guys can kind of flesh out most of it today, hopefully.
Okay. So we'll look at, for the Go team, we'll look at our priorities we've already looked at, and then we just need to look at our outcome. And then I will meet with our leadership team and we'll come up with the strategies. And then we'll come back and do a final vote when we get our budget and at our next Go team meeting. Is that something, the Go team, is that the route we want to go?
That sounds like a great way forward to me. Anyone have any additional thoughts on that?
I'm in agreement.
Okay. So here are some of here's what I've heard. So let me go back to the Go team. So here's a key performance measure. These are ones that I just suggested. And I added on to them implementing a minimum of 3 interdisciplinary units.
That service learning project.
Say that again, Ms. Carter.
Oh, the service. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. We want to add service learning project on there?
Yes, when he was saying the fact about the actually doing that, I guess a way to measure, and it ties it to me, and I could be wrong. It ties in that service learning project is the key project that's done on the 8th grade level. That would be the one that will I say Dr. Hackett was speaking about. I mean,
Which is a part of the IB framework.
right.
Okay, quick question. Is the service learning, is that NYP 3 or would that be NYP 5?
So the service learning project can be done at the middle school at 8th grade. It's not done on the same scale as it would when they get in 10th grade.
Okay.
So it could be an individual project or it could be a class project. And so we've done, as we were going through the application process, we did a lot of our servicing projects through Georgia State All-Stars. And so it could be something like kids collecting socks for the homeless. And that was a part of their project, but then they talked about the reasoning for the project. So you can do a service learning project at 8th grade. It won't be, now when they get to 10th grade, it is more independent.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
So right now, let me ask this question. Since we don't know what the state is going to roll out according for assessment, do you want to keep that we should maintain or increase our CCRP score when it becomes valid? Or do we change that language and say maintain or increase the CCRP score, the state reporting, or do we leave this language?
I think that we should leave it, given our current state. Increases.
And because my goal was that we should not regress
right
from our current CCRPI score. That we should either maintain it or go up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, just put maintain or increase, because regardless of where we are, virtual or not, our goal is to always grow, right? And increase or have student growth. So regardless, I think it should be maintain and or increase.
Okay. So
I want to say increase, but that 25% that are going to have gaps probably when we return. I'm leaning towards maintain.
Okay. I think that we should say, remember that the way CCRPI is now, that students are measured based off their, like me, Paul Brown, would be measured against students like me for growth. So I think it's okay to say maintain or increase, because it's at either one. We don't want to consider going down. Our goal is to always improve. So I'm gonna go to the next one. Do we vote on these individually, or do we just?
For now, we just discuss them and then we can vote. It sounds like we're gonna vote on the priorities first anyway, and then we can
Yes, ma'am.
Measures.
So in here, we said use key performance indicators in ELA and math for developing. But I think that one of the things I did not put in here, based off of our subgroups, I need to add that language, because we really want to make sure we continue to focus on all kids. It's very important for every kid in our school to be included in our data. And sometimes if we leave it this way, we may miss a group. So I may need to change that to maybe I need to say something like for all subgroups at the end.
Yes.
Is that right? Or is it 2 words? And remember that a subgroup right now is anytime you have 15 or more students that fits in that category.
Mhm. Any thoughts on this particular change from the Go team?
So just so, because maybe I'm not the only one that doesn't quite understand this, so I'm going to ask it. Are you saying that this would still be very similar to what has been in the past, where once we have valid data, we'll be able to then plug in those numbers as we have in the past, or
Yeah.
is this looking different?
No, it would still look the same.
Okay. Okay.
So the words for all subgroups would include Black, white, Hispanic, special ed, students with disability, all of the subgroups that we currently have
Okay.
in our strategic plan will be covered because we put that phrase in there, all subgroups. Because I really think that we need to make sure that we don't lose grounds with all of our students. This is, and so the next, any other questions about this one? I'm gonna go down to the next one. The next one is increase student scale score on STAR reading and math assessment from fall 2001 to spring 2022. This is something that we can get that we'll have by the end of the year. Whether the state has an assessment or not, we can have our STAR assessment because kids took it in the fall and they will actually take it in the spring. So those are two data points that we can have for this year, even if we don't have a state assessment. And so that'll give us some data to build our program over the summer as kids come back in the fall.
Yeah, I think it's really important to include that. For me, it's kind of tough this year because I like having the data. I like being able to look at it. I like being able to compare, and not having that is hard. So I think it's good that we have another assessment here to at least try to supplement some of that data.
Mhm.
Okay.
One question I would have before we move on, Mr. Brown, is do we want to put here to maintain or increase based on the gaps that we might see?
I think that what we can do for this year is use this as baseline because the only I guess caution sign I would put up with with STAR data is because right now students are taking it in a virtual setting, we can't manage like who's helping or if they're not helping. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, but it still will give us data to use with students. Hopefully students will be back in the building by the end of the year. If students are in the building, then that is something that will be in a controlled environment. But right now, our kids are taking the STAR assessment and in a uncontrolled environment. But I think that it still will be a good data point to use with students.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I believe so. I still was saying, are we comparing this though? We're comparing it to, I know you said we're just going to use it as a baseline. We don't want to compare it to previous data. Therefore, we need to maintain, like we want it not to decrease as well. So just like the earlier indicator.
Yeah, I think that if the kids were present, I could compare it to last year. But because the kids are not, I think that we need to leave it as a benchmark year for us.
Okay, got you.
That's what I'm saying. Or informational. I'm trying to think of the language.
I understand.
Okay. So where we have implementing a minimum of 3 interdisciplinary units at each grade level, that would be like the math and science teachers will have to do a unit, you know, that at every grade level, content will be working together. It could be math, science, and language arts, but that would also take care of our requirement for IB as well, because there's a requirement for IB as well in order for us to maintain certification.
Okay.
And on here, I know right now our connection teachers, they are implementing ATL skills to all students. So students will be familiar with it. So when we start the year, it still will keep us in line with IB. And I'll clean this up to make sure it's like flowing correctly. But I'll get the gist of what our priorities are going to be. I mean, what our measurements are going to be.
I'd like to make a correction, and Ms. Jones was right about that service learning project. I was looking back on some notes, and that is done, like she stated earlier, and is introduced in high school in 9th grade.
Yeah, but our kids can do one in 8th grade though. For IB,
Oh.
we still can do one.
Oh, okay.
They start earning points and credit for that 10th grade year to present their IB service learning project. But we still can expose our students to the service learning project at 8th grade.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. But
oh, okay, because it is introduced like in 9th grade.
Yeah. So
okay.
the kids will have to complete their own individual service project by 10th grade, and that's where they present. So we can put project-based learning, service learning projects. I think it still would be great for kids to know, because we do want our kids to be successful when they go to Jackson. We may want to say service project-based learning and service learning projects by this year is 2020. What is this? 2020. So next year will be 2021, the end of next school year.
22.
Is that correct? Is that correct?
22, right?
22.
Oh, okay. Thank you. What you? Nothing. Let me. I'll figure it out. I'm getting. Yeah.
And you're saying by the end of the school year, right, Mr. Brown? So the end of
No, I'm saying for next school year.
The academic year.
The academic year.
So 21, 22.
So this is
20. This is 2021.
Mm-hmm. And so then we're moving into 21, 22.
22.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay.
All right, Mr.
Brown. I think that we talked about the IB report card. We did the IB report card based on the learner profile. We can look at by 2022 also doing it by content. And I can discuss at least measuring one content having an IB learner profile. Because I know the district is moving toward it because we do have other schools that are IB schools. But we were the only school that did an IB report card last year based off of our learner profiles.
Mr. Brown, is it too much, and team, is it too much to ask if we did it in all content areas? And reason why, when we did it last year, the children, they really, really enjoyed the commentary and how it varied based on the content. For an example, they saw like different facets within themselves. Oh, I'm more of a communicator in such and such class. Oh, I'm an inquirer in this class. So just based on the feedback that they shared with me, they were really, really excited just to read the commentary about them and how they exemplified those learner profiles.
So we can continue with implementation of the learner profile and explore implementation of the learner profile report card, but then explore the content report card based on IB. So there are two types of report cards. There's one that's the learner profile that talks about the kid, and then there's the content one, which requires a little bit more.
Okay.
And so I don't want to overwhelm, especially if we're coming back into a face-to-face setting and we've been out of school since March. We're gonna have to do a lot of instructional support for kids, and I don't want to overwhelm teachers with something. You know, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes,
So
yes, that makes a lot of sense.
So we still can put the IB learner profile report card, having one by the year 2022, another one for kids. I mean, we can try that even for this school year, because I think I do remember the kids loving reading it, and they emailed me about it. So we would continue with implementation of the IB learner profile report card.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
And explore looking at the content IB report card.
And even just to add to what Ms. Jones was just saying, Mr. Brown, even when we do, I guess I don't know about the other grade levels, but on the 6th grade level, when we do student of the month, we always recognize the student based on their IB learner profile. So how they represented that they were a communicator all month or knowledgeable. So it would just be a continuation of what we're pretty much already doing.
Okay. And then the final one was increase our school partnerships. I don't know if I need to define those into business, or I just put partnerships. Am I losing you all? Because I know it's getting kind of late.
No, I mean, I think it's sufficient, but I also think that we could explore as to what exactly we mean by partnerships. Are there any key areas that we need to?
I think currently we have, and I think, and that was one that I was putting as a personal goal of mine. I think that we have great partnerships with universities, but we have not explored a lot of the business community partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has been something that we have not done as a school. And I think that may be something we need to do to help improve our culture of our school, bringing the business community in as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if the more targeted we can make it, the more successful we'll be in reaching it. So if that's one of the indicators, maybe it would be helpful to add some specificity around that part.
Okay, so that's my perception. You all, what's your perception? Teachers, community members, what do y'all think? Parents? Like when you think about our school, we think about those partnerships we have with Georgia State, Emory, Clark Atlanta. If you said, Mr. Brown, what are our business partners? I would say Outlet Community Church. Does that make sense?
I agree. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I agree. Yes, I agree. I agree. Let's explore and bring in those business partnerships, considering we are so close to downtown. A lot of businesses have erected within our community. So, sure, why not?
This is wrong. Is that wrong? I hope it's not right. Am I spelling business wrong?
Nope, that's correct.
That's right.
And so, Mr. Brown, the business partnerships do not include things like the laptop coming to our schools for the students.
We can't talk about that right now. So that cannot be discussed right now. No. Okay, please disregard that comment. I will talk to you about that later.
But I mean like the T-Mobile one before.
No, so it could be, yes.
Because I'm saying
so like the T-Mobile one that we have right now, yes.
Okay, so this could be business and corporate partnership.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. What kind of business partnerships exist with Jackson? And would it be something to explore? If I'm sure that there are some multifaceted ones, right? That are there with Jackson. And I wonder if they would want to span down into King as well. That could be something to look at too.
Okay, because I know Jackson has a lot of business partners, but
right.
I think that we were spending so much time on our school, building our school brand.
Yeah.
And I think, and part of it's my personality too, I'll be real honest. So it's something that I, as a leader, have to make a certain effort because even with our partnership with Outlet Community Church and Mr. Thomas, he has to like almost like stand in my face and say, I'm not gonna leave till you tell me how can I help you. So that's something that me as a principal, that's an area I have to work on as well. So if I have a goal in front of me, I know I could change my behavior to meet that goal. Would you not agree with that statement, Mr. Thomas?
Oh, all the time. It's like I'm forcing you to take donations. I've never seen anything like it.
So okay. So I think that's part of yeah.
Okay.
And there are some young entrepreneurial active programs that exist, right? At King that I thought I knew of, developing some young entrepreneurs
Yes.
and things like that. So I wonder if that would be a strategic place to
start. I agree. Again, I think it's you know, the leader determines where your school go, and I think I have to get over the thing of I'm not good at asking for help. That is one of my. I'm like, work within your family, make it happen. So, so that's something I have to build on, and so that's why I'm putting it as a goal, and it's because I know I'm gonna meet our target.
I'm proud of you, Mr. Brown. I'm proud of you.
Every step.
Just think of the families bigger, so you can still ask the whole big family for help. It's still the family.
Okay, gotcha.
So, but Mr. Brown, just in the interest of time, if there aren't any other, are there any other specific questions on this? Because I did want us to move along in the agenda because we are actually over an hour at this point. So I wanted to figure out how we can close out this kind of part and come back to it, because it sounds like we still have some work to do on the strategic plan to be able to vote on.
I would suggest that if we could vote on our priorities, if we discussed our 5 priorities, that was earlier. The meat and the inside is something that I'll meet with the leadership team to clean up before our next one. But before we leave, at least give me like these are our key measurements. Are we going in the right direction? And then I would clean those key measurements up, because that's what's going to determine our strategies. Is that the best way to describe it, Ms. Jacoby? I'm making sure I'm in line with what we're doing.
Repeat the question. Please repeat the question.
Okay, so we've talked about our priorities. Those areas we could adopt as a Go team. These are our key measures that we would use. And then I will meet with our leadership team to iron out those strategies and all that in the middle.
Right.
Is it at this point, can we vote on the priorities and our key measures and then come back at our next meeting after we iron out all the middle part and say finally vote on the final part of the strategic plan?
So for your budget, the only part that you need for your budget aspect to start with is ranking those priorities. So if your team, you're welcome to vote on those accountability measures today, but it's that ranking of those priorities that you sort of want to have in place as you start down that budget part, because that way, again, that's more governance is the priorities.
Okay. So why don't we do this tonight? If we vote on our school priorities, I'll take our input and put it all in our strategic plan, and then we'll vote on the strategic plan next after we clean it all up.
Yeah, and don't forget to rank those priorities, because how they're ranked will help guide Principal Brown and the leadership team as to how your allocation will be spread out. Like if you all rank, we need a new playground set, which you're not going to get. It's a wild thing. You rank that first, then you're telling him that you want the focus of any funds to go there first before it goes into everything else.
Okay.
So right now we have our ranking as we put our school the student achievement as our #1 priority. Am I sharing with you all? Can y'all see my screen?
We
Okay.
can. Uh-huh.
Okay. And then we talked about increasing the rigor and implementation of IB. And you just tell me, this is what we currently have that we did before, if this ranking would suffice. Then we look at strengthening teacher capacity. Increasing systems to address academic concerns. And then developing a positive culture. So those are the 5 buckets that we currently have. Is this order? Do you want to keep this order? Or we want to change it around?
I like that order. Cause I'm thinking like the triangle, the students being at the top, the academic piece.
I agree with the order as well.
Ms. Carter, you on mute. Are we voting? I guess Ms. Trisha, you would have to like do that part.
Yeah, so I wanted to have some discussion first.
Okay.
Everybody agrees with the priorities, how they're listed and ranked. And before we vote on that part, is there any other discussion on how they're listed and ranked? Is everyone in agreement with how they're listed and ranked? Okay. Okay, cool. So if we're in agreement, could I have a motion to accept the school priorities as they are listed and ranked?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the school priorities listed and as they are currently ranked.
Great.
Providing I get a second.
I'll second.
There we go. All right, the motion has been properly made and seconded. Let's now move into voting. All those in favor of that, please vote by saying yes.
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 Those that do not agree with that, please vote by saying no. And anyone who chooses to abstain. All right, sounds like that motion carries, Mr. Brown. So you have your priorities and they are ranked appropriately.
Okay.
All right, and so what we've agreed to though is the next meeting we'll come back and we'll discuss the strategies for the strategic plan, as well as then just finalize those measures based on the strategies that you come up with. Does that sound good to everyone? All right, cool. Okay, so then let's move on then to the next part, which is still you, Mr. Brown. It's your show, the principal's report.
So I'm gonna make it real short and sweet. I think the biggest thing was today, our teachers participated in a workshop, professional development, on a new resource we have for students, iExcel. They also, we also revisited the gradual release model because we're really trying to work on this semester of increasing student engagement. Currently, we are getting ready for the reopening of kids coming back. We did have a parent meeting where we kind of discussed the reopening plan. We currently have about 253 students that are coming that have registered for face-to-face. So we're preparing we're preparing the building to receive those students. Those students will receive a letter outlining what they are to do when they come into the building. That letter will be mailed out by Friday. For those students who are remaining virtual, they will receive a letter as well, outlining what they need to do as we get ready as we do the face-to-face and the virtual setting, the synchronous learning that will be going on. So we're on track for getting ready. Teachers are back in the building. They came back yesterday. And I think those are the highlights of where we are right now. I did it quickly because I know we took a long time.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for that, Mr. Brown. Any questions about Mr. Brown's report or any additions or anything? No, hearing none. All right, thank you for that. So let's move on then to announcements. Are there any announcements to share with the group? No announcements. Nothing fun happening? No? Okay, great. All right, so just as a reminder, this is an opportunity, this meeting specifically is for public comment. We did not have any from any members of the public to sign up for this particular meeting. So I don't believe that we need to read our format for public comment. If I am correct, Mr. Jacoby, thank you for that. So we actually, if there's no other business to attend to, we've moved on to the last part of our agenda here, which is adjournment. May I have well, let me ask, is there anything else before we close?
I'm going to make everybody mad. Can I make one comment?
Absolutely.
Just real short. So I wanted to say that I was very excited in those performance measures that it included more than the normal percentage that we put on test scores. While I'm a data guy, I like seeing data. I'm so glad to see other things in that list that are beyond just data-driven points of test scores. So I thank you for those thoughts.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Carty. Way to give praise where it's due.
Yeah, to that point, you know, stories matter as much as numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's really good stories that are coming out. There's really good instruction going on at King. There's really good projects. There's really good presentations and engagement that kiddos are doing. So how else can you capture that where the numbers don't capture it? And they are very much a performance and a very strong performance, and it speaks to some really good instruction. And so that's where I was trying to, you know, see if we could get there. And I think we could get there. And we're going to have even better discussion, I think, when we talk about those performance measures down the road too. But we got our priorities in line.
We have them. And thanks again to the teachers and you, Mr. Brown, for just continuing to keep this ship in the ocean during a very, very different school year, making sure we're still putting our students and our children first. So it does not go unnoticed. Every time I see my son pop up in the morning, now at the dinner table as opposed to his room, to do his instruction, I really do appreciate all the energy that the teachers bring to make sure that he stays engaged. So thank you for that. All right, so then let's move on then to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Ms. Jones, and it is a second. All right, the meeting is adjourned at 6:19. Thank you all. Our next meeting is February the 17th at 5 p.m. Same space and channel. All right.
Good seeing everybody.
Good seeing everybody. Have a good one.
See you. Bye.